Hello! Today we're going to have a look at amplifiers. Now, amplifiers have been around since the invention of the electric guitar because you can't really have one without the other. And of course there are thousands of different types of all different shapes and sizes to choose from. In the early days, amplifiers worked with valves, and in some cases the speakers would be separated from the amplifier. I'm just going to show you this. So that's the Grateful Dead, an iconic photograph of their setup in the old days with all the speakers stacked on top of each other. Extraordinary, really. But it's not like that today, thankfully. The powers that be then put the amplifier and the speaker into the same box, and they became known as combo amps, which is what they're called. In the old days they weighed a ton, full of valves and everything, but then with the advent of the transistor and then of course with digital, they've become a lot lighter. You'll probably recognise some of the old more familiar amplifiers that have sort of passed into history, really. The Vox over in the left hand side there, the AC30 was used by the Beatles, of course, made famous by the Beatles. The Marshall stacks in the middle there was for the rock and rollers and the rockers. And then there's the Fender twin amp, it's known as, which was played by the blues players. They all had their own sound and their own characteristics, but of course modern technology has overtaken all that now, and you can actually replicate the different sounds of the amps, the vintage valve amps, through a small effects pedal or a bit of software. It's extraordinary what they can do these days. As far as the ukulele is concerned, it's obviously an acoustic instrument. And so there are amps out there that try to replicate the acoustic qualities of a uke or other acoustic instruments. Probably the best known one of these is the Marshall AS50, which is a 50-watt acoustic amplifier. They're pretty heavy actually, but a lot of people have used those, and they're quite reasonably priced actually. But they're fairly big, but that was a well-known acoustic amplifier that's built especially for acoustic instruments. Before we go any further, we just need to clarify about the power of amplifiers. That is measured in watts. So you may remember from your school days, of course, that amps times volts equals watts. And we use watts as a measurement of loudness, if you like. It really measures how loud an amplifier is. To give you an idea, the PA at the Jam, when we're at the Jam, is a 600 watt PA. So that means it's big enough to play large venues. On a jam night at the Winchester Club, for example, it's turned up to about 3/4, maybe a third, to get to the back of the room. So it's pretty powerful stuff. When we did the gig out in the tent that time, we had it cranked up because the sound dissipates in the open air. So it's a pretty powerful bit of kit. So that's about 600 watts. As far as we're concerned, really, it's 25 watts is more than enough. For what we're doing, for small gigs, open mics and things like that, 25 watts is more than enough. In many cases you maybe plug into the PA anyway, but if you want your own mic, your own amplifier, then certainly 25 watts is more than enough, really. There are plenty out there to choose from of different types depending on what your budget is. I thought I'd go through some of the stuff that I've got so that it will give you an idea. We'll use those as an idea to explain how they sort of work. You'll have seen that when we do outdoor gigs where the sound dissipates a lot, you might have seen me using this, which is a Behringer small amplifier, which is actually 150 watts, and so it's pretty, packs a punch. You can use it as a monitor. It's very lightweight, it's small, goes in a bag, and it's fine for bigger spaces. They're pretty good. There are quite a few of this type on the market. Recently I've always been looking for various things that suit what I need it for. And recently I've acquired an Isuzu, which sounds very Japanese, doesn't it? But actually they're made in the UK. And I got this from Matt Warnes up at World of Ukes, who heartily recommended it as a really good small 25 watt amp that's great for acoustic instruments. It's known as a busking amp sometimes as well because it has two inputs, and there are quite a lot of these on the market. So what I might do now is just we'll cut away from this, and then we'll have a look at the knobs and switches on top of that, and that will explain a little bit how these amplifiers work. To do this, and so you can understand how it sounds, I'm going to use the electric uke. The reason for that is, and if I use one of the acoustic ones, you're going to pick it up on the microphone, and so the signals will get mixed up. So what I've done is that I've plugged in the ukulele to the amplifier, and that's plugged in here, and I've taken a line out from this bit, and that's taken straight into the amplifier that goes into the video. So that's the way we're going to do it. That way we don't get the double sound. So if you have a look at the quick look at the layout up here, you'll see this is divided into two parts. Actually, it's divided into three parts, but let's have a look at these. So you've got two inputs here. One is for, it says acoustic guitar, but obviously it can be anything you like. Acoustic. You can actually put a keyboard through it if you wanted to. So you've got an input here for that, and then here you can put another guitar, or you can put a microphone. So that's what makes it good for busking. And then you've got various knobs and switches along here. These two parts here are, if you like, a preamp, in as much that you set up everything here, and then your volume control is this one here. So once you've set up things how you want them to sound, you can then turn the volume up and down as you will, so that it comes out of the speaker here. So you'll find that a lot of amps have this preamp and then a final volume knob at the end, which will boost the signal how you want it. So this one's got a few effects on it, which are pretty neat. So in a completely dead situation, we've got the uke. Sounds all nice and flat and things like that. So that's fine for playing. But then it's got a various bits and pieces. So we've got a volume control here. We can turn it up if we want to. Now this volume control here, on some amplifiers you'll see it calls itself a gain. This one calls itself a volume, but it calls itself a gain. And a lot of amplifiers, if you turn them up to full blast, they start to distort, and you get a distortion. You can then change, and it boosts the volume like anything. But then you can turn the volume down using this end. So that is one of the ways that you can get distortion through an amplifier. This one doesn't do it so much because it's not geared up for doing that sort of stuff, but it stays pretty, it's pretty good, the volume control here. And then we've got a few effects here, so I thought I'd just go through these for you. There are two, this one has two effects. One is delay and one is a reverb. And then it's got a button which controls these, how much effect you want to put on them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the effect right up so that it gives you an idea of how it works. And then we'll have a look at, firstly, at the delay. Now, delay is when you get, well, I suppose it's like echo, but we call it delay. It repeats what you play a short time after. And this is really good for adding a little bit of depth to your playing and things like that. So if I play this like this, nothing happens there. If I turn this right up, you then get. And you can hear that echo going all the way. So this is obviously going right to the far end of the scale. You wouldn't ever have it like that probably. But it's worth noticing that this is called delay rather than an echo. So that's one little doobry you've got there. The other one is, of course, reverb. Now, reverb is something different. It's not the same as a delay. It simulates the natural reflection of sound waves bouncing off walls or in a particular room. And so, if you go onto a bit of software and stuff, they give you loads of different settings: a bright room, a wooden room, all that sort of thing. So we turn it up a little bit. We're in the bathroom pretty much, aren't we? Okay, so if I whack it right up, this will give you Winchester Cathedral. You can hear it like that. So these are the two effects that you get on this little amp anyway. Other amps have all that sort of stuff on in various types, and they have other bits and pieces as well, depending which one you buy, of course. So that's that half of the of the amp. This other half just has tone controls. Really, it doesn't have an awful lot of effects. It's got a little bit of reverb here, but that's going to be for probably for your vocals. So it's not, you haven't got the delay that you would have in a guitar. So once you get to there, then you set these up, and then you can use your master control the master volume to control the volume that comes out of the speaker here. So that gives you a little insight. Of course, these things, they're different. They ones you buy have different things and knobs and switches on them. But this is quite a simple version, and it actually does just what you need it to do, really. Nothing much more than that. So I hope that's useful. Just to finish off that little segment, I'm just going to play a little bit through proper ukulele, an acoustic ukulele, through the amplifier. I've given it a little bit of a reverb and a little bit of delay. And what I'll do is I'll turn this microphone down, so you won't be able to hear the ukulele through that. You'll just hear it clean through the amplifier. So that's how that works, and hopefully clarifies how most of these amplifiers work. They all vary slightly in what they have, but that's the general principle behind them. One thing to watch out for, particularly if you have a microphone within your ukulele, and that's feedback. And just to explain feedback, if you've got a microphone in here, okay, and you're playing through an amplifier, the sound is going to come out of the amplifier and then get picked up. If it's too loud, it's going to get picked up by the microphone again, which is then going to go back out to the amplifier and picked up by the microphone, and of course you get that terrible howling and you get feedback. So that's a word of warning, is just to watch out for that, because if you turn them up too loud, you'll get that loop of sound, which then just goes wee and blows your eardrums out. So just look out for that. But that tends to be only with the microphones and the bugs. Piezo pickups don't do that. Okay, there is one other type of amplifier that you can use, and that's one of these, which I've got down here. Hang on a sec, I'll just get it up. Oh, God, weighs a ton. There's one of these, which is a tiny little amp. Which are made by, well, this one is obviously made by Orange. Marshall do one. I think there are some other ones out there. They're tiny little amps. They've got some knobs and switches on the top. You've got an overdrive and volume controls and things like that. And then you can just plug your headphones in the back, and away you go. They're particularly useful if you've got a solid body electric. You can put it into one of these, put your headphones on, and you won't disturb anybody, and you can rock out. Okay, that's it for this time.